Hi, my name is Luna. And 3 weeks ago, my world shifted when I discovered that my little sister, Sierra, had used my credit card to fund a luxury vacation in Beverly Hills without asking, without warning, and without shame. The worst part, that credit card wasn't hers to use. It was meant for one purpose, only to pay for my dad's emergency heart surgery. He has a rare and severe aortic valve condition. We were told if he didn't get treatment within the month, we could lose him. So when my mom showed up at my apartment in tears, clutching medical papers and begging for help, I didn't hesitate. I handed over my gold card, but I gave one condition only for Dad. Only medical. And call me before using it. I keep the balance low for security. She nodded through tears. She hugged me. She promised. Fast forward a week later, I was sitting on my couch after a brutal day at work in Seattle, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, when I saw a post that made me stop breathing for a second. There she was, Sierra draped across the hood of a white Lamborghini on Rodeo Drive. She was wearing designer sunglasses and holding a champagne flute. Her caption said, "Dreams to come true. Beverly Queen. Treat yourself." My heart skipped. Then came another post this time. A selfie from the rooftop pool at the Peninsula Hotel. Then a video at Nobu Malibu. Then a haul of shopping bags from Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Cartier. I blinked. I refreshed. I looked again. Could this be real? I called her. She answered, all breezy and unbothered. Hey Bixes. What's up, Sierra? I said slowly. How did you pay for this trip? She giggled. Oh. Relax. I used your card. Only like 90 grand. Don't worry. There's still plenty left for Dad. I laughed. But not because it was funny. I laughed because my card, the one she used, only has a $100 balance at any given time. I never leave money sitting on it. I transfer funds before I make a purchase. It's a habit I picked up after someone tried to steal my identity back in college. That's when the reality hit me. They never planned to use that money for Dad. They used my love for him as cover. And right there, in the silence of my apartment, I felt something inside me break. Not because of the money, but because I finally saw the truth. The real betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who know your heart and use it against you. Let me take you back to where this all began. To understand how this happened, you need to understand my family. On paper, we look picture perfect. But behind closed doors, it's always been more complicated. I'm Luna Matthews. The firstborn, the planner, the fixer, ever since I was a kid growing up in Tacoma, Washington. I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. I got straight A's. I graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in business and clawed my way up from barista to strategy director at a rising tech startup in Seattle. Nothing was handed to me. I earned every inch of ground I stood on. Then there's Sierra, my little sister. She's 24. Wild-hearted. Impulsive. Magnetic. She studied fashion design in Los Angeles at a private college that bled our family's savings dry. After 3.5 years, she decided she was burned out by structure and dropped out just months before graduation. Since then, she's bounced between part-time gigs, TikTok dreams, and short-lived side hustles, never holding down anything for more than a few weeks. Still, Mom treated her like the golden child. Her name is Charlene. She used to be a nurse, but stopped working full-time years ago. These days, she's more focused on appearances, perfect home decor, Instagrammable brunches, and the illusion of a picture-perfect life. Growing up, she always insisted our living room be model home, perfect. Even if it meant maxing out credit cards. We had marble countertops but no savings account. Dad is the opposite. Mark Matthews, a retired public school teacher who taught you Brad's Risen Tired 90 Resin Cess. History for over 3 decades. Quiet. Thoughtful. Principled. He's the reason I know how to build a budget and what compound interest means. Every Sunday morning when I was a teen, he'd sit me down at the kitchen table with a yellow notepad and go over everything from savings accounts to ethical spending. He used to say, "Money can disappear, but your character, that's what stays." But as he got older, he also got quieter, especially when it came to Mom's spending habits or Sierra's reckless behavior. He hated conflict, so he let things slide. And those little slides added up. By the time I graduated college, our family's financial foundation had already started to crack. Mom had taken out a second mortgage on the house without telling Dad. Sierra had racked up nearly $20,000 in credit card debt, which magically disappeared when Mom figured it out. I stayed quiet. I was building my own life, trying to create distance, hoping the chaos would settle, but it didn't. And when Dad's heart condition worsened, everything that had been quietly crumbling behind the scenes started falling apart in public view. I didn't realize it then. But handing over that gold card wasn't just about helping my father. It was about stepping back into a role I had tried so hard to escape, the only adult in a house full of grown-ups pretending nothing was wrong. And this time, the cost would be more than financial. It was a rainy Thursday in early spring when Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I remember the way the raindrops clung to her jacket, how her mascara had bled just slightly beneath her eyes. She looked smaller than usual, nervous. Desperate. In her hands was a weathered manila folder, thick with medical records and insurance paperwork. "Luna," she said, her voice cracking. "We need your help." I led her inside, made tea, and tried not to jump to conclusions, but in my gut, I already knew. Dad had been slowing down. The last time I visited Tacoma, I noticed how he took the stairs one at a time, gripping the railing like it might give way. When I asked him if everything was okay, he just smiled and blamed it on age. But this wasn't just age. And now, sitting across from me at my kitchen table, Mom was finally saying it out loud. "Your father's been diagnosed with severe aortic stenosis," she said, pushing the folder toward me. "His heart valve is barely functioning. And he has an arrhythmia on top of that. The cardiologist says we have less than a month before things get dangerous." I flipped through the records. Echo reports, blood work, specialist referrals. She wasn't exaggerating. It was all there in black and white. The insurance covers some of it. She continued. But the specialist he needs, Dr. Emery in San Diego, doesn't take our plan. He's the only one who does this minimally invasive valve replacement, and his outcomes are the best in the country. She paused, watching my reaction carefully. The total cost is around $60,000. We applied for a medical loan, but it'll take weeks, maybe longer. We don't have time. I felt the weight of the folder in my lap. I thought about Dad, about how he always stayed up with me the night before big exams, how he taught me to drive in the high school parking lot, how he used to hand me a crisp 20 every time I visited, even when he didn't have it to spare. And now he needed me. I don't have that kind of cash just sitting around, I said softly. But maybe there's another way. Mom leaned forward. "What about your gold card, the one with the high limit? You mentioned it once." I froze. That card was my last resort emergency backup. I rarely used it. And when I did, I transferred money manually to avoid fraud. Still, it had a generous limit. Enough to buy time. We'd pay you back. Luna. Every penny. Just until the loan clears. I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the card. It was supposed to be for emergencies. This was an emergency. When I walked back into the kitchen, I handed it to her. This is only for Dad's treatment. I said firmly, "You call me before any charge? No surprises." She nodded, eyes wet. "You're saving your father's life, Luna." And just like that, I stepped back into the fire. The first few days after handing over the card were quiet. Too quiet. Mom would text vague updates. Like, "We're scheduling appointments now," or "talking to Dr. Frennens. Emery's office today." Every message ended with a heart emoji, as if digital affection could reassure me that everything was under control. But something didn't sit right. Maybe it was the way her updates lacked any specifics. No dates, no confirmation numbers, no follow-up questions about transferring money to the card. She hadn't even called to ask for coverage on a deposit or a consultation fee. That wasn't like her. If anything, Mom was usually quick to ask when she needed help. This new silence felt manufactured. On the 5th night, I finally called Dad during my lunch break. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "How are you feeling?" He sounded groggy, like he'd just woken up. "I'm okay. Just tired. Been staying home mostly. Mom says you've got appointments lined up with that specialist in San Diego." There was a pause. "What specialist?" he asked. "Dr. Emery," I said, my stomach tightening. "The one Mom said had the best procedure for your valve." "Luna," he said slowly. "I haven't seen any new doctors. I've only had one appointment with Dr. Section Patel, our regular cardiologist. No talk about San Diego." I thought we were still looking at local options. I managed a weak laugh. "Oh, must be some confusion." But inside, I felt a chill run down my spine. That evening, after another 12-hour day at work, I collapsed onto my couch with a carton of takeout and opened Instagram, just to distract myself. And that's when I saw it. Sierra, my sister. Her latest story was a slow-motion boomerang of her sipping a cocktail by a rooftop pool. A caption scrawled across the screen, "Sunset vibes in Beverly Hills." I tapped through. Photo after photo. A luxury suite with rose petals on the bed. Designer shopping bags lined against a marble floor. A selfie at the Peninsula's spa. A group shot with 2 influencers I vaguely recognized, all tagged at high-end restaurants and boutiques. At first, I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she had a boyfriend who paid. Maybe it was a gifted trip. But I knew better. My fingers trembled as I switched over to my credit card app. Pending charges. Multiple. Hotel. Airfare. Spa. Restaurants. But not a single hospital, clinic, or doctor's office in sight. I sat there frozen. Phone in hand. Heart pounding. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was theft. And the worst part wasn't even the money. It was the realization that my mom and sister had looked me in the eyes, told me they needed help to save my father's life, then used that moment of trust to buy themselves a vacation. I wasn't just angry. I was heartbroken. The next morning, I woke up with the weight of dread pressed against my chest. I hadn't slept much, My mind had replayed those Instagram stories over and over again. Sierra lounging in a cabana, laughing with strangers, toasting with champagne. I couldn't shake the image of my dad, sitting at home in Tacoma, unaware that the money meant for his surgery was being burned in Beverly Hills boutiques. I needed answers. Now? I called Mom 3 times before noon. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text, urgent, call me about Dad's treatment. No response. Then I called Dad. Hey, I asked, trying to sound casual. Has Mom been home this week? Not much, he said. She said she was driving to a few finance offices to get stuff sorted with the insurance. Why, just checking. And Sierra, has she been around? She mentioned something about taking a break with friends. Honestly, I haven't seen much of either of them. I kept my voice steady. Okay. Thanks. Dad. Love you. After we hung up, I immediately called Dr. Patel's office, the local cardiologist Dad had been seeing. I pretended I needed paperwork for insurance purposes and asked if they had any referrals to Dr. Emery in San Diego. The receptionist paused. No. Mom. Mr. Matthews is scheduled for his next checkup here in 2 weeks. We haven't sent out any referrals. My heart sank. I spent my entire lunch break digging through Sierra's public posts. Her timeline painted a perfect story. She'd flown to LA 2 days after Mom took my card, booked into the peninsula, shopped on Rodeo, dined at Catch. Then Nobu. Rode in a Rolls-Royce. She even tagged a facialist I recognized from a celebrity podcast. One caption reads sometimes, "Your soul just needs to unplug and indulge." I wanted to scream. As he sat at me desk, paralyzed with anger. A name popped into my mind. Brenda. Mom's oldest friend and our former neighbor. I dialed. Hi. Brenda. Sorry to bother you, but I'm trying to get in touch with Mom. Do you happen to know where she is? Oh. Sweetie. Brenda said warmly. She's probably still in California. She mentioned she was taking Sierra on a little getaway to help with her stress. So thoughtful of her. Stress. They stole money for a heart surgery and used it to treat Sierra's stress. I thanked Brenda and hung up. I couldn't breathe. Back at the office, I opened a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Evidence. I began saving screenshots of every post. I downloaded my credit card transaction history. I printed messages from Mom about phantom appointments and emails from Dad's doctor confirming no referrals had been made. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just about confronting them. It was about making sure they could never say, "We didn't know what we were doing." Because now I had proof. By the time Saturday rolled around, I was done waiting. I printed every screenshot, highlighted every charge, labeled every post. My folder was thick with evidence dates, times, dollar amounts, and I rehearsed what I'd say during the drive down to Tacoma, gripping the steering wheel tighter every mile. The closer I got to my parents' house, the more surreal it felt. It was the same street I grew up on. Same front porch Dad used to sweep every Sunday morning. But tonight, something was different. I wasn't coming home, I was coming to confront. I pulled into the driveway just as the sun began to set. Through the window, I could see candles flickering on the dining room table. The good dishes were out. Sierra's laugh floated through the glass, followed by Mom's voice. It looked like a celebration. I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door, startled for half a second, then recovered with an overly bright smile. "Luna, what a surprise! Come in." "Sweetheart." We were just about to eat. Sierra was already seated. swirling wine in her glass like she belonged in a reality show. Dad looked tired but happy to see me. "You've been working too hard," he said. "Come join us." I sat down. Let them serve me. Let them talk. I waited. "So," I said, finally, looking directly at Mom. "How's Dad's treatment going?" She didn't flinch. "Oh, great news. Doctor Emery said your father is a perfect candidate. We've got things scheduled for next month. Everything's moving forward." Dad furrowed his brow. "You didn't tell me that." "Charlene, I was waiting until it was confirmed." "Honey," she said sweetly. I nodded. "Interesting. Because I spoke with Dr. Patel. His office says no referrals were ever made." The room froze. "Oh." Mom laughed nervously. "They must have misplaced the paperwork. You know how these offices are." I turned to Sierra. "And how was Beverly Hills?" She lit up. "It was amazing. Life-changing. The spa alone. And the Gucci bag." I interrupted. "The hotel suite, the luxury car, how did you pay for all that?" She hesitated for only a second. "I used your card. But don't worry. I only spent like 90 grand. There's still room for Dad." Dad's fork dropped. "You did what Mom jumped in." "Thomas, please don't stress. It's not good for your heart." Luna offered the card. "And you promised it was for medical expenses." I said, voice steady. "That's what I agreed to. And instead, you both used it to treat yourselves while telling me my father was dying." Dad looked at Mom. Then, at Sierra? His face was pale. Not just from illness, but from betrayal. "You told me you were meeting with doctors," he said to Mom quietly. "I was multitasking." She mumbled. I placed the folder on the table and opened it. Photos. Posts. Receipts. The truth laid out in black and white. No more lies. No more pretending. Silence filled the room. Dad stared at the photos like he was trying to convince himself they weren't real. Mom kept opening and closing her mouth like she wanted to explain, but no words came. And Sierra just rolled her eyes. "You're being so dramatic," she said, stabbing at her mashed potatoes. "It's just money. You make good money. It's not like you're broke." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Just money," I said. "That card was for Dad's surgery. You used my concern for his life to bankroll a vacation you thought you deserved." Dad turned to Mom. "Charlene, did you really go with her to California?" She hesitated. "I was helping with logistics. I made some calls while I was there." "You lied to me," he said. "You looked me in the eye and told me you were working on finding a specialist. And you were drinking champagne in Beverly Hills." Mom's voice started shaking. "I was going to fix it. Mark, once the medical loan came through, I was going to pay Luna back." Sierra needed the break. Her anxiety's been through the roof. I turned to Sierra. "You needed a break." While Dad couldn't walk up the stairs without losing breath, Sierra crossed her arms. "My therapist said I was headed toward burnout. He recommended rest, and honestly, I stand by it. That trip helped me reset." Dad let out a quiet laugh, but it wasn't amused. "You two don't even hear yourselves." "Do you?" That's when Aunt Karen walked in. Mom must have called her mid-meal, hoping for backup. But Karen wasn't here to save them. I saw the posts. "Charlene," Karen said, folding her arms. "This wasn't self-care. It was theft. Luna gave you that card to save her father's life, not to spoil Sierra." Mom tried to shift the narrative. "Luna always makes everything about money. She's cold. Just like her father." "No," Karen said sharply. She's responsible, something this family seems to treat like a flaw. Sierra stood up. If you're so mad, Luna, just cancel the card. You said yourself it only has $100 balance. I looked her dead in the eye. Exactly. That's all it ever had. You didn't spend 90 grand. You tried to. The charges are pending. And when they bounce, every business you lied to will know it was fraud. Mum's face went pale. Wait, you never transferred funds. I never intended to. I said, I suspected the moment you walked out my door. Sierra went silent. Mom collapsed into her chair. Suddenly speechless. Dad looked at me and whispered, You knew I hoped I was wrong. I said, but I wasn't going to let you pay the price. That night, I left with the truth laid bare and the people I loved scrambling to rewrite it. But it was too late. The damage was done. The drive back to Seattle that night felt longer than usual. I kept replaying everything Dad's face when the truth hit him. Mom's excuses. Sierra's defiance. The disbelief. The betrayal. The silence that followed. My phone buzzed non-stop with messages. From Mom. From Sierra. From extended family members I hadn't heard from in months. Some were begging me to drop it. Others blamed me for airing private family matters. But none of them had seen my dad's expression when he realized his wife and youngest daughter had used his failing heart as cover for a luxury vacation. I turned the phone off. The next morning, I called the credit card company and officially reported the charges as unauthorized. The representative on the line, Marcus, was calm and professional. This happens more often than you think. He said, Family fraud is one of the hardest to report. But you're doing the right thing. They flagged the charges and launched an investigation. But Marcus warned me, depending on the amount and the merchant complaints, there could be legal consequences for the people involved. You may be asked whether or not you want to press charges, he said. But the companies defrauded may also pursue their own action. The weight of that reality hit hard. I wasn't just exposing a lie. I might be sending my sister or even my mother into a courtroom. Later that week, Sierra called in a panic. The hotel called. She cried. They're saying I need to pay $25. $000 by next week or they'll report me for fraud. I can't go to jail. Luna, please. You have to help. I stayed quiet. Just tell them you changed your mind. Say you authorized it. It's one statement. Please. I wanted to scream. But instead, I said calmly, No. I won't lie for you. You made your choices. Now you face them. The next call was from Mom. You're tearing this family apart, she said. Over some money. No. I said, you tore this family apart the moment you chose a spa over a surgery. She sobbed. She accused. She pleaded. I listened to every word. And then I hung up. Dad moved out a few days later temporarily. He said, but I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. He stayed with Aunt Karen, who agreed to help him get a second opinion with a new cardiologist. His health was declining fast. I knew I had to act. I liquidated part of my emergency fund and took a penalty hit to pull from my retirement account. It wasn't ideal, but Dad's life mattered more than interest rates. When I told him what I had done, he cried. Not because he was ashamed, but because for once someone had put him first. For years, I had been the backup plan. The fixer. The one who stepped in quietly. But this time, I wasn't cleaning up after them. I was choosing who deserved to be saved. The hospital scheduled Dad's surgery for the following Monday. I had wired the down payment directly to the billing office, no credit cards. No middlemen. No room for misunderstandings. It emptied my emergency fund and took a chunk out of my retirement savings. But I didn't care. I'd make it back. What I couldn't make back was time. The night before the procedure, I visited Dad in his hospital room. The sterile lights. The rhythmic beeping. The soft hissing of the oxygen line, it all made it real in a way no diagnosis ever had. He smiled when I walked in. "There's my girl," he said, reaching for my hand. "Dad," I said softly, "you're getting the surgery. It's happening." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I don't know how to thank you. You already did." I said, "You raised me to never ignore what's right." We didn't talk about Mom. Or Sierra. Not that night. We just sat in the quiet. Grateful that we'd gotten this far. The next morning, just before dawn, I got a call. It was Sierra. I debated not answering, but something in me said I should. "Hi," she said, her voice low. "I heard about the surgery. I wanted to say thank you." I didn't reply. "I've been selling my stuff," she continued. "The bags. The shoes. I've raised about $7,000. I want you to have it. For Dad." I blinked. "You're serious?" "I am," she said. "And I've started working at Dr. N's Long's dental office. Just answering phones. Filing charts. It's not glamorous. But it's a paycheck." Part of me wanted to snap, to remind her what her choices had cost. But another part, the tired, raw part, just felt numb. "I appreciate it," I said finally. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," she whispered. "But I want to change. For real this time." After we hung up, I stared out my apartment window for a long time. The city was waking up. Buses rolling. Lights turning on. Life. Moving forward. Was her change real? I didn't know. But I knew this. Her actions would speak louder than any apology. At the hospital, the surgery went smoothly. The doctor told us Dad responded well and would need a few weeks to recover. But his outlook was good. When he woke up, groggy and blinking, I squeezed his hand. "You did it," I said, tears in my eyes. "No," he murmured. "We did." That night, I slept more soundly than I had in months. Something had shifted. Not just in my family, but in me. For once, I wasn't carrying everyone else's weight. I was just choosing who and what was worth carrying forward. 6 months later, I pulled into my parents' driveway on a crisp autumn Sunday. The air smelled like firewood and dried leaves. It used to be the kind of visit that filled me with dread, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. But this time felt different. Dad greeted me at the door. His face was fuller. Color back in his cheeks. He walked without assistance now. Even up the porch steps. "Come on in," he said with a grin. Taco Sunday waits for no one. Inside, the kitchen buzzed with something that felt normal. Mom and Sierra were chopping vegetables, trading small jokes. The energy between them had shifted. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Sierra had kept her job at the dental office and was now taking community college classes to finish her degree. She still had her dramatic flair, matching earrings and neon nails, but she showed up every day. On time. No shortcuts. As for Mom, she had started therapy. Real therapy. Not self-help books or yoga retreats. She even invited Dad to sit in on a few sessions. It was awkward at first, but it gave them a space to talk about things they'd avoided for decades: financial secrecy, enabling, fear of failure. She didn't change overnight, but she was trying. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside in the hallway. "I've been meaning to say something," he said. "That night, when you exposed everything, it felt like the family was falling apart. But now I see you weren't destroying us. You were saving us. In your own way." His words hit deep. "I just wanted the truth." I said, "You gave us more than that." He replied, "You gave us a chance to grow up." On the drive back to Seattle, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the confrontation, the healing, and how sometimes the hardest thing isn't exposing someone else's lie, it's stepping away from the roles you've been forced to play your whole life. I had always been the fixer, the strong one, the one who covered the gaps. But this time, I didn't patch the cracks, I let the floor collapse. And somehow, we rebuilt something sturdier. I started volunteering once a month at a local community center, teaching financial literacy. It wasn't about lecturing people. It was about helping them see that money isn't just numbers, it's about values, about trust, about choices. So what's the lesson in all of this? Sometimes, love means saying no. Sometimes, healing means letting the truth wreck the illusion. And sometimes, the person you need to save is yourself. If you've ever been the one carrying the family on your back, wondering when it's your turn to breathe, this is your sign. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to protect your peace. And you are allowed to start over, stronger than before.